Live on your side, you always get live first.
We are live. Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
we're going. Yeah,
Looks like we're going. What's
looks like
today?
we're
Today is
cooking.
12/5. It's December 5th,
12:05.
Monday. We
Happy
got
Monday.
lots to talk about today, Ron, don't we? We have a very special guest that's going to be joining us at the top of the hour. Let's wait for some more people to jump in here, though. We don't want to have anybody miss this. We're going to be talking about the Mountain Valley Pipeline. It's back.
Yep.
The Biden administration at one point told Manchin he would revisit this if he supported the Inflation Reduction Act. So now it is coming back as part of the NDAA.
Yeah, that's great. That the act that was crumbs of crumbs of crumbs, complete with a couple poison pills, was only on the condition that we revisit this huge poison pill at a later time. That's
That is
fantastic.
absolutely really bad for the environment. Because it's not just the Mountain Valley Pipeline that would be affected by this, right? He wants to fast track these agreements. So there's going to be, if these get fast tracked and that becomes the precedent, it's a disaster for the environment, in my opinion. It's just a handout to fossil fuel companies. All right. So, and in order for us to really understand what's going on right now, we invited John Sokolow to join us. He is an attorney. He's been fighting against the Mountain Valley Pipeline now for quite a while. So, John, what is the latest and greatest? My understanding is this is coming back because Biden told Manchin that they would revisit this if he agreed to support the Inflation Reduction Act, and so now he's bringing it back as part of the NDAA. I know we haven't seen the actual language yet, but we can assume that it's the same, if not similar. So, what's the latest and the greatest?
Although, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is a really important issue, and it's a very important time to be talking about it. The latest is we're expecting a vote in the House of Representatives as early as tomorrow on the NDAA with this Joe Manchin dirty deal amendment. It was supposed to go before the Rules Committee today. They pulled it because apparently, as of an hour ago, they did not have agreement. But the Democratic leadership is leaning on this heavily, pushing to get this included as part of the NDAA. It's really an outrage. I mean, just to put this in context, this has been an absolutely terrible year for the Mountain Valley Pipeline. They lost the permit to cross more than 1,000 water crossings along their 300-mile route. They lost permit to cross the Jefferson National Forest. They lost the biological opinion that was issued by the Fish and Wildlife Service. These were all as a result of decisions by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. They lost a compressor station permit in December of 2021 for an extension of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And they had two oral arguments, one in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and one in the Fourth Circuit, which went terribly for them, and we're waiting decisions. So this pipeline was on life support before Joe Manchin sold his vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. And the price of selling it was to really up the ante, to not only legislate around these court decisions by just directing federal agencies to issue the permits for the Mountain Valley Pipeline, but to go further and gut 50 years of environmental protections that we've had in place under the National Environmental Policy Act, the Clean Water Act, other bedrock legislation, which laws that are designed to ensure community input. Joe Manchin doesn't want community input. He wants pipelines. He wants fossil fuel projects for his donors. He's chair of the Senate Energy Committee, although he'd be outgoing, obviously. So it's just a terrible bill, and this is the time to be fighting it. We need to get all hands on deck to defeat this bill in the House if it comes up for a vote tomorrow, and certainly over the next few days and a couple of weeks. We're going to be very vigilant to make sure that it does not get passed.
Jonathan, I want to hang on a second. I want to revisit what's in the bill so people are clear on this, because it's been a while since we've talked about it. The Inflation Reduction Act was sold to the general public as being a net benefit for environmental causes, for climate change. And I really think that this particular piece of legislation is the exact opposite. So can we talk a little bit about what's in there so people can have a refresher on that?
Sure. No, absolutely. The bill, and again, we haven't seen the updated language, so we're going off of what Joe Manchin introduced back in August and September, would direct the President of the United States to designate 25 priority projects that would be fast-tracked Analysis has shown that I think 19 of those 25 are fossil fuel projects.
Yeah.
It would shorten the time period for filing challenges to these projects or to any fossil fuel project under the National Environmental Policy Act. The current statute of limitations is I believe 6 years to file such a claim. It would shorten that to several months after the decisions are made. It would do the same for the Clean Water Act. It would limit involvement of communities. It would limit comment periods. It would direct federal agencies to expedite these permits without giving them the funding to expedite the permits. So that's a big issue. These agencies are underfunded, understaffed. So directing them to move faster just ensures a messier process. And then to go further, and this is one of the most outrageous pieces of this proposed piece of legislation, is it would take for the Mountain Valley Pipeline one pet project of Joe Manchin's, and say legislatively through an act of Congress that the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals no longer has jurisdiction over any permit challenges that come forward. It would direct the federal agencies to issue the permits, just issue them, ignore their. I mean, this is really an outrage. The whole idea of federal agency review is to find out if these projects comply with existing law.
Right.
They don't, which is why they keep losing their permits in court.
Yeah, this has not been a friendly court to their cause.
Well, not just this court though. I mean, the dirty little lie here that they're using to sell this is that the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals is somehow biased. The fact is, the Fourth Circuit has ruled in Mountain Valley Pipeline's case in their favor in a number of cases, and the D.C. Circuit, which is considered a more friendly forum for fossil fuel interests, held a hearing on one permit issued by FERC in April that if you go by the tenor of the questions that were being asked, Mountain Valley Pipeline expects to lose that case. So it's just a lie that the Fourth Circuit is biased. The Fourth Circuit is simply enforcing the law. Mountain Valley cannot comply with the law, so they want to buy Joe Manchin. They have bought Joe Manchin's vote to try to introduce legislation to work their way around the laws that they have violated.
Ron, did you want to?
No, I have.
I have more questions. Okay. So I wanted to ask you. So there are 70 plus congressmen that have now sent their support to fight this. Who's leading that effort? Who's on board? What are some of the arguments that they're using? Well,
the effort was this. You're referring to a letter that was sent by Representative Grijalva a couple of months ago. So he led that effort. We've got members of the Progressive Caucus as well as moderates in the House of Representatives who think that this is a bad idea. In the Senate, our own senator from Virginia, Tim Kaine, has been supportive of this effort. I don't believe he signed on to that letter, but he was instrumental in making sure that this so-called permitting reform bill died in the Senate back in September. Bernie Sanders gave a speech on the floor when this came up on a continuing resolution. He's been a leader in this fight. So the support is strong among progressives, but not just progressives. The more moderate senators and representatives have also joined in because they understand that these environmental laws are bedrock principles, and you can't just legislate around them. That's just not the way we go about building projects, and we certainly don't need more fossil fuel projects at this point in the climate emergency.
Right. So Ro Khanna tweeted out earlier today, I will vote against the rule for NDAA consideration if it includes giveaways to the fossil fuel industry. If even 10 House progressives vote against it, it likely can't pass. We all have a stake in tackling the climate crisis, and it's critical we listen to communities hit the hardest. I want to talk about those communities for a second, Jonathan, because part of the problem with this particular pipeline is that where they want to place it in these communities, if there's something that does go wrong and there's an explosion, there would be, a zone of destruction and people would likely die. And you don't hear the guys pushing for this, Manchin, Biden, whoever, Schumer, they are not talking about that part of this. And I think that's really scary.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The pipeline would go through an earthquake zone for one, in Southwest Virginia. It would go through zones that have what's called karst, which is basically a limestone that's very porous, through which water flows. It's like Swiss cheese. These are very vulnerable, very fragile ecosystems that would be affected. It crosses, as I said, more than 1,000 water bodies. It goes through largely poor and rural communities. It goes through communities of color. It goes through indigenous communities, particularly in North Carolina, where they want to build an extension to the Mountain Valley Pipeline called the MVP Southgate. So it really is disproportionately affecting communities that have borne the brunt of the environmental pollution that we have had in this country over many decades. It's treating them as sacrifice zones, and that's one of the arguments that some of the supporters of this bill voice. That well, something's got to give, and it's better for the greater good to do a trade-off. Last time I checked, my kids are not trade-offs. They're not sacrifice zones. You don't turn to your kids and say, sorry, fellas, but we're going to place this bomb of a pipeline next to your house, but it's all for the greater good. So just be chill. That's not the way people think.
And it's not even for the greater good. Yeah.
No, that's not the way people live. But the miscalculation, I'll call it, that the supporters have placed is they have not read the history of Appalachia. This is a fighting community. This is a community that's not going to roll over and be treated as a sacrifice zone. They will fight for their families. They will fight for their land. They will fight for their water, and they will fight to defeat this bill. And they will fight to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline. As I said, the reason this pipeline has taken 8 years now and it's still not complete is because it can't comply with federal law.
Right. And, Joe Manchin has taken a lot of money from the fossil fuel industry. So he's definitely bought and paid for it. But yet he keeps winning his re-elections, which is really mind-numbing to me. Folks know what he's about. They know he's not representing his constituents, but rather the fossil fuel industries and the people he gets money from. Why do you think that is?
Well, the politics in West Virginia are complicated. Of course, it's a largely poor state. People don't have a lot of options. They're given a false choice of your option for work is either the coal mines or some other fossil fuel project or unemployment. These are small towns that the entire economy relies on this sort of bust and boom fossil fuel industry. That's just the history of the coal mining in particular industry in West Virginia. They've done the same thing now with fracking in Appalachia, not just in West Virginia, but in Kentucky, Western Pennsylvania, and so forth, to give people this false choice. And the truth is, people in these states, I've spoken to them. I used to work for the mine workers, health and retirement funds. People want a job. And if you offer them an option for a green job with good benefits and good pay, they're not stupid. They understand the risk of climate change. They understand pollution in their communities. They will go for it. We just need to give people that option and pump money into alternative energy, which is really another way of saying pump energy into our future rather than pump energy into the fossil fuel past.
Yeah, so it's the same old song and dance. This is your job, so you have to vote to support this. Otherwise, you won't have a job, which excludes what you're talking about, that there is potential for other jobs there if we would just do something to change the way we saw the world, right?
That's right.
There's also a bunch of environmental groups that are supporting your fight right now, and I believe there was a letter of support sent out in regards to that as well.
Yeah, there's been a series of letters, the most recent which was today, and this is just incredible. More than 750 environmental and environmental justice organizations wrote a letter, signed on to a letter saying that this dirty deal must be stopped, not just because of the Mountain Valley Pipeline, that's bad enough, but because now you have this overreach where they're not only gutting fundamental environmental laws, but changing the rules of the federal court system to appease one private party. I mean, the precedent is really just amazing. If the shoe were on the other foot, you can imagine the screams and yells from conservatives and Republicans that we're going to legislate around some Trump judge somewhere and just order that some solar project be passed because we can. It's just bad public policy. So this is why we're urging everybody.
It's bad public policy.
Yeah.
So what would be, I mean, worst case scenario here, and Joe Manchin's poison pill goes forward, what would kind of be the next step? Are there any legal avenues or I mean, obviously we don't want to expect the worst, but just if it were to happen, like what avenue would be next?
Well, we'll fight them with all the tools at our disposal. I'll say that there'll be legal challenges to this law first of all, as being illegal, abrogating federal court jurisdiction, and so forth. So there will be challenges to that. They can't prohibit. They can't. Last I checked, they can't pass a law saying this law is unreviewable by a court. That would happen in some other countries, not in a country that professes to be a democracy. So there would certainly be legal challenges. There's been direct action throughout the course of this struggle. We had tree sitters who occupied a tree sit in Elliston, Virginia, for more than 900 days, blocking the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. We had people occupying trees on their own land. We had people parking cars on it. So I would expect that if this passes, there will be more nonviolent civil disobedience. Because people are, as I said, are not going to roll over and let their communities be treated as sacrifice zones. People will fight this fight until it is won with every tool at our disposal.
But there are there are some legal avenues here though. Like you guys are going to be able to kind of get on top of this in the legal sense and put up a hell of a fight.
Well, I think so. I mean, it would certainly be a worse situation because the fight thus far has been to prove to the courts, which we've done repeatedly, that these permits violate federal law. If this bill were to pass as it has been described to us, all of those permits would be immune from judicial review. That's what it says. It says the agencies are directed to issue the permits, and the permits are unreviewable. Republicans
that is freaking nuts.
Well, Republicans have not been in favor of
nuts,
this.
Yeah.
And they should think, they've been opposing this bill for probably all the wrong reasons because they want Joe Manchin's seat in 2024.
Right.
So no honor among thieves. But they should
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, but they should think twice about whether they think this is good public policy, because when the shoe is on the other foot, they will not be too happy.
That's right. It's a bad precedent. So it shouldn't be shocking to anybody that the establishment Democratic players support this stuff because they are very pro-corporation. That's been the case for a long time now. But this just seems like an extra level of setting a precedent here that is just absolutely untenable, especially if you're trying to sell yourself as the party that's pro-climate change. Because at the end of the day, there's no, here's the weird thing about this too, Jonathan. I don't see what the benefit is overall for the common good here if they're trying to make that argument, right? Because it really just benefits this company. It's unnecessary pipeline. It's going to make money for them, but it's not delivering anything that is, of really important, like we have to get this done or people are going to not have their energy kind of a thing. That's just not the case in this particular instance.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of politics involved up until close of business tomorrow. Joe Manchin's vote was a decisive vote in the United States Senate. That's very likely to not be the case afterwards. So I think there's a certain amount of appeasing Joe Manchin because we need his vote. I think they're going to figure out pretty soon here that they actually don't need his vote, and he's got very few options available to him. So it's
Maybe
explaining why the Democrats.
President Manchin.
Yeah, well, he loves being the 51st vote, but when he's the 52nd vote,
right.
Sorry, fella. But
it's true though.
But the Democrats just need to get the message. I can't decipher why they would stand up to a huge piece of their base, 750 plus organizations that say this is bad. I can't see why they would legislate a pipeline that would be the equivalent of 19 million cars on the highway each and every year, 26 coal-fired power plants. this is just this is not what I think Nancy Pelosi wants as her legacy of the last major piece of legislation that she forces through as Speaker of the House. So it's really hard to understand why the Democratic leadership would do this, which is why we're asking people to call Speaker Pelosi's office. And I could just put in a plug here. Her phone number is 202-225-4965. That's for Speaker Pelosi. You can also call your member of Congress. If you call this number, you'll be directed directly to your member of Congress. The number is 917-791-2257. And call them and just tell Speaker Pelosi and tell your congressperson that to vote no on Joe Manchin's dirty deal, to oppose it being attached to a must-pass piece of legislation like the NDAA or a continuing resolution, that this is bad for the environment, it's bad public policy, it's bad for environmental justice, and it's just a terrible precedent. So we're just urging people to do this and really to do this today. If you're listening in and you want to pick up the phone, there could be a vote in the House of Representatives as soon as tomorrow on this legislation.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, thanks for fighting the good fight, man. I know that when you're an attorney, you could probably join Team Fossil Fuel and make a lot more money. So thank you for fighting the good fight.
Well, we need to look to 7 generations hence and really preserve this planet for those who come in. We're just caretakers. And if I could just add in, Jordan was part of this fight from very early on. He came down to Virginia, and I believe it was 2018, and covered the tree sitters who were up in the trees at that point. So he's really been part of this fight, and we very much appreciate the continued coverage and with everybody's effort and help. I think we're going to win this fight.
Yeah, I think it looks good. There's definitely a tremendous amount of pushback, and more so than just the group of progressives that we see always on the front lines. This is expanded. There's definitely a lot of anger towards this. So I think we might see this go down. I'm hoping that's the case because it is really terrible precedent. Thanks for coming on, Jonathan, and explaining everything. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it as well.
I hope he's right.
Oof, Ron. Yeah,
really
I mean, it is a bad precedent. And notice though, like this is so typical of the Democrats, right? So now we're going to add this really terrible piece of legislation to the NDAA, which has to be passed, right? It's Defense Authorization Act for folks that don't know what we're talking about. This has to be passed. It has to be passed. So they put things into this that they want that are their, pork or whatever you want to call it. And then notice last week when it came to the railroad strikers, we're going to split this into 2 bills. We're going to vote on the amendment separately about the 7 days. It's just, gamemanship in the worst possible way. And it's very frustrating that our Congress cannot get its shit together. I mean,
and it's so frustrating. I mean, to just go on the analogy you made, that's like a really, really irrelevant one contemporary. It's also so frustrating. Look at how quickly they moved with this rail stuff. Like, look at how fast they moved compared to how slow they move on everything else. And then also look at the manner in which this is what they're using their lame duck for. They're using their lame duck to put all this all this pork in the NDAA bill, which, by the way, before we get off this topic, I also want to bring up another one that really pertains to all independent media, but especially, the type of stuff that Status Coup does, because we do a lot of firsthand journalism here. And that is the JCPA, the Journalism Competition and Preservation Act. I'm doing air quotes, hand quotes, because it sounds like it'd be something that we would freaking love. The goal of this legislation, Tina,
but isn't that always the case?
Right. Oh, yeah. It sounds
they always
great.
Make it sound like something else.
The goal of this legislation is supposed to be to address the financial disaster in journalism and to kind of create more transparency and just a better system in place for journalism to be funded when it is posted on social media and shared and things like that. This sounds great. This sounds... Oh, you have a tech issues? Did we lose you?
I went out for a second, but now you're back again. I don't know. Did you hear me?
Out? Okay.
Or is it
you went out for me.
Yeah,
You
you
went
went
out
out.
for me,
Oh,
but
StreamYard.
now
I'm
you're
blaming
back.
StreamYard again. I don't-
Colin,
okay,
are
you're
we
back for
both
me too.
on a live stream? Are the two
Can
of us on a
everybody
live?
hear
You guys
us?
are both
Yeah,
good.
I don't know.
Look at those headphones. Where'd you
Okay.
get those?
These are great. You can
I
change
love
the
these
colors and
headphones. I want a
everything.
pair.
They're cat ears, but they're pink ones. Cool, man. But we're both on the internet right
All right.
now, audio and
Yeah.
visual. Oh,
Yeah, I think it was
Oh,
just
that
a
was
slight
weird.
hiccup, it
Okay.
sounds like.
oh man, the holidays came early. We're doing this.
Okay.
We're doing this. All right, thanks, Colin. Look at those headphones, folks. Colin's
I don't know,
headphones.
man.
Leave a
I
super
want
chat
these.
for
Yeah,
Colin's
they're awesome.
headphones, folks, and smash that like button.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, the JCPA.
As
so
you were saying.
it sounds like something that's good, right? Especially since Status Coup has had their footage used before by the corporate media, and there was no license fee, there was no credit. It sounds like, gee, a piece of legislation that makes something like that easier for the little guys sounds like a good thing. But of course, it doesn't do that at all. Instead, what they did was they invited all the juggernauts to the table, Sinclair Broadcasting, all the corporate media. They now have this cabal with social media as far as what journalism is shared and how it's shared. And there's a couple really interesting potential poison pills here that could really impact the way we use the internet. One of them is there is a user tax should you want to share news on social media. Which, first of all, so imagine like you want to share a news article and you have to pay for it. So that's one scenario that could be a reality. You got to pay to share news. Another scenario that could happen, which I think this is even worse, it could be like,
That's
okay,
not good.
right. We want to charge people to like share news, but the corporate media, they don't want users to have to pay for that because they want people to share their news. So they'll reach some kind of settlement, but maybe independent media, people have to pay to share that because we can't afford any kind of fees. So that's going to create a crazy precedent as well. There's all kinds.
Now that is totally unacceptable. Yeah.
There's so much
It's
because
because news is no longer viewed as a public good, right? Yeah,
right.
I
And
agree.
instead of having
this
a real
idea
solution
that's public
for
service.
and instead of having a real solution for
There
it,
is
which
a
by the way,
solution. You know what it is?
there's plenty. What is it?
Am I losing
We
you
lost
again?
you again.
Oh, I don't
Something's-
know. There's just
something's
weird
up.
audio.
Are you not?
What it is there's your audio is off by like 5 or 10 seconds from your video, so that's why it looks like you're muted, and then the audio comes in later.
You're out of sync.
Oh.
There's in sync and there's
Is that
out
an
of sync.
internet lag?
It's
That's
probably
really
something with
weird.
your microphone or something with the settings in StreamYard. I'm not entirely
Are you
sure,
not-
but
I'm
Did you forget-
going with its StreamYard because my monitor here is fine. It's got to be an internet thing.
Did you maybe forget to? Because
All
I've
right,
done this
just
before. Did you
carry
forget-
along with us. No,
Do you have Wi-Fi off? Are you wired
did
in?
I forget? Of course I don't have.
'Cause
I'm
I've done it
wired
before.
in,
I've done it
and
before.
Both
All right.
the Wi-Fi is on and I'm wired in.
All right. I mean, I've forgotten that before myself, so you never know. I just thought maybe that'd be a simple fix.
Yeah, Chris Garrett is saying I'm on delay. That is so weird.
You're out
and
of
the
sync.
video is out of sync. Yeah, that's an internet thing. I don't know why that is. Sorry.
They're messing with you out in
Reboot.
LA proper. You could bounce out and bounce
Should I
back in and see
leave
what that does.
StreamYard and come back in? Do you think that'll correct it? All right.
I think it
I'm
might.
Gonna,
You can
I'm
try.
gonna bounce out of StreamYard. All right, I'm bounce back in. Ron, do a little.
There's totally a lull because I was totally responding to her like while she was talking, and then visually you could tell she was saying something else. All right, Tina's gonna log back out and log back in, which should make it a little easier there because we were having some lag issues. Folks, I'll just continue the spiel about the JCPA until she gets back. So this bill could do all those things I described, where you have to pay to submit news on the internet and on social media. Please, we need to act on this. The JCPA does not help small news organizations. It helps the corporate media. It's a giveaway to them. It allows them to have a cabal combined with social media outlets on how news is shown and seen and how it's funded. And it's also an antitrust loophole. Fortunately, you can do something about it right now, folks. Colin, could you pull up the Fight for the Future call to action here? Go to fightforthefuture.org. Red alert. Tell Congress not to destroy access to credible news. Call your lawmaker right now. Actually, do it after the show. Not right now, but after the show. I'm going to call right away. You can call right now. We have to act immediately because, again, this is something else they're trying to push through the NDAA.
Is it working?
I think you're a lot better now.
Okay,
Say something.
I don't know. StreamYard's like that sometimes. Yeah, it seems to be better here too. It looks like it's not.
Yeah, I think
Sorry
you're
about
now.
that.
I think we're good.
All right, woohoo! It's the little
All
things,
right.
people. It's the little things.
Welcome back.
All right, what are we working on right now? What are we moving on to?
Well, I just finished plugging the JCPA. Get it out. They're trying to push it through the NDAA,
right.
just like
Okay.
the Mountain Valley Pipeline. It's one of the other poison pills they're pushing through, which is so great. There's great legislation sitting in Congress right now,
Yeah.
folks. There's antitrust legislation. That would be huge. You can go to BidenPromise.us to sign that petition, by the way. We've been wanting a vote on that for almost a year now, pretty much almost the entire year. They haven't moved on that, but
Right.
they're moving quick as hell to put a bunch of poison pills in the NDAA. We told you about two of them. We told you about the JCPA, and we told you about the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So that's what they're trying to do. So please go to fightforthefuture.org. Call your lawmakers. Call your lawmakers about the pipeline too. This is an all hands on deck moment. Send an email, make a phone call, send a tweet even. Every communication vehicle helps. So this is all hands on deck because they're trying to ram this thing through as we frickin' speak.
So let's talk, since we're on the subject of antitrust, let's talk about what's happening with Live Nation, Taylor Swift, and what's the Live Nation parent? Ticketmaster. Sorry.
Ticketmaster. Well, they merged.
I mean,
Yeah.
They merged. So again, this is, the conglomerations that are forming large monopolies. They're controlling the marketplace. They're screwing over not only the music talent, the artists, but also now the consumers. And they're getting some pushback. The More Perfect Status created this great little video.
More Perfect Union. They have very nice statuses. Their statuses are great. Their tweets are great.
That was a combo of Status Coup and More Perfect Union. It melded together in my brain. Yes, More Perfect Union. So
maybe that's a collab that needs to happen. A More Perfect. I mean, I like More Perfect Union. It does amazing stuff. So I'd be all about that collab. But maybe that's got to be.
And they
More
do send
Perfect
journalists out there.
Truth.
There's been several protests where I've been out where there's been somebody present filming from More Perfect Union. So they are definitely out there doing the work. All right. So anti-competitive behavior is what's at the root of this. In many ways, we can also tie this into what's happening with Spotify at the moment. You're getting a lot of pushback from the artists on that platform as well because they're not getting paid any money. The way that system has been set up, 70% of the rights royalties are going to the record companies. Still, it's like a feedback loop, right? And now they want the artists to give up their rights with this discovery mode. If you're willing to give up your rights, it's like payola, right? Then you get promoted on the platform more. So it's like every way you can figure out to screw our musical artists, that's happening. But I think
I mean, it's a little different here because Ticketmaster is screwing over the fans harder than the artists themselves. I mean, if you sell a bunch of tickets, you're still making money. But yeah, it's a similar thing where it's like someone at Spotify's making money and the artists aren't seeing a dime. Whereas like with Ticketmaster, they're just price gouging.
They're price gouging
everything.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's because they can get away with it and they're just royally screwing over concert goers, which is also affecting artists because look, if you're some big like arena level act, you'll be fine. But if you're not, this stuff legit does trickle down, for lack of a better way to put it, where people are not going out to live entertainment as much. Right. And the other shitty thing about Ticketmaster, and I could speak to this from a lot of direct experience as like a touring performer, they own, it's not just Ticketmaster, they own a bunch of smaller ticket companies that have exclusive contracts with smaller venues. So like if I'm going to play a club that holds 50, 60 seats, it's a small venue. You have no choice
but to use them, yeah.
You have no choice if they have an exclusive contract and you don't even know if it's a Ticketmaster. It's a homework assignment. It'd be like, is this affiliated with Ticketmaster? And you have to do research online because they own all these other, subsidiary companies So it's like, I mean, that's why I always tell people I will do my best to avoid Ticketmaster. I can't promise I'm able to in every single situation, especially if it's like something that I have no say. Like if I'm part of a festival or something, I have no say in how they do the ticketing. You know what I mean? So it's really crazy, the monopoly they have. And it's, well, let's go to, I don't want to watch the entire Cory Doctorow video because it's over 9 minutes.
Part of it's pretty, part of it's pretty
it's
good
a
though.
Really
he's talking
awesome
about
video.
78% of the ticket now is their fees. That's outrageous.
Right.
78.
Right.
Who makes that kind? Again, this is a monopoly. So let's play part of that video.
So that's in the Twitter thread, Colin. It's just like it's like a couple things down in the Twitter thread. He has a video. Yeah, there it is. Oh,
there it is. Yeah.
It's off the StreamYard though. There we go. All right.
Fans were outraged to find that ticket prices for his current tour were as high as $5,000.
Springsteen's fans have never felt cheated until now.
$5,000 a piece?
$5,000.
Would you really pay $5,000 to go see your favorite band?
No.
I can't do that.
That's a bit much.
We can thank a predatory new business practice for that. It was introduced by Ticketmaster, and they call it dynamic pricing. It's an experimental technique, and it's pissed off everyone, from fans to venues to performers themselves, including the boss. So, how can Ticketmaster get away with it? Because they are the bullies of the music industry playground. Ticketmaster and Live Nation, which is the same company, but we'll get to that later, can basically do whatever they want because they have seized control over every aspect of the live music industry by creating a monopoly. This ticketing cartel has the power to destroy venues and artists who refuse to work with them. They even have their own resale platform, and they encourage and incentivize ticket resellers to gouge fans. All of these exploitative practices make Ticketmaster execs very, very rich. Live Nation CEO Michael Rapino made $70.6 million in 2017. That's one of the largest CEO pay packages ever. But here's the twist. This entire monopoly was helped along and enabled by our elected leaders. So how do we get to a point where the people in charge of preventing monopolies are enabling monopolies? And more importantly, how can we take back power from Ticketmaster and their monopolistic brethren? Let's take a look. I'm Cory Doctorow, and this is
we can stop it here, I think, because
more
otherwise we're going to be...
classroom.
Yeah.
We're getting sucked down to the rabbit
But
hole.
watch
So
the whole thing. It's a very good video. I do recommend everyone
very
watch
good.
the entire thing. It's too long for us to just watch here, but yeah, it's very good, and it
But
explains.
he's getting at the heart of why it's the Department of Justice not enforcing antitrust laws is what brought us to this place. So
Yeah.
the lawsuit, Ron. Now we have Taylor Swift fans that have filed a
They
lawsuit
pissed off
in
the wrong
California.
fans.
Yeah, right. So
Apparently-
they now filed a lawsuit in California courts on Friday night.
Yeah, so let's go to that Twitter thread, Colin. So Taylor Swift fans, which by the way, I actually forgot they were called Swifties. I totally forgot. When I looked at the playlist for today before we went live, I said, "What is this Swifties story?" And they're like, "That's the Ticketmaster thing." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that's what they're called." So this market price thing that first happened, or at least most notably happened with Bruce Springsteen, where tickets were going for $5,000 a piece. A similar thing happened with Taylor Swift tickets, and her fans got really freaking pissed off. And now they're having a lawsuit, which I don't know anything about. I mean, not anything, but I know very little about Taylor Swift. I know very little about her fans, but all power to them. This is awesome. Taylor Swift fans, this is from More Perfect Union, folks. Taylor Swift fans are suing Ticketmaster for its disastrous handling of the Eras Tour ticket sales. They're alleging fraud, misrepresentation, and antitrust violations. I say
That's
guilty,
right.
guilty, and guilty. Awesome.
Yeah.
Go Swifties. How could I?
So how could you not love that? Part of the lawsuit is basically focused on the fact that is the anti-competitive compartment, right? So they're imposing higher prices on fans in the pre-sale, sale, and resale market. So Ticketmaster owns all of the companies that do all three of these things. Here's the thing. They're making fees on the pre-sale. Then if somebody resells it on their ticket resale market, they make the same fees again which are really these inflated numbers on top of it. So the Swifties are seeking a penalty of $2,500 for each violation of this, which is quite a bit if it adds up.
Oh yeah. Good.
So the other part too is they're
win.
claiming that the large stadiums that Swift is touring at, right? They have ownership in those as well. By the way, did I mention earlier when we were talking about Spotify that Live Nation also owns a part of Spotify? They were one of the original investors. So when you control every aspect of an industry, it's not only bad for the artist. In this particular instance, it's the artist. It could be somebody manufacturing something, whatnot, and also for the consumer, because they control the prices, they control how things get delivered from start to finish. And again, this is because our Department of Justice has stepped away from enforcing antitrust laws now for decades, and it's been very detrimental. Part of that video that More Perfect Union was talking about, they were talking about how there was a change of belief in economics that came out of the Chicago school, which is true, where they're saying don't pay attention to antitrust anymore. There are other ways that consumers can benefit from lower prices. Yeah, I don't want to bore anybody with the details of that. But, this is...
You're not bored. You're angering me. I don't like these thoughts. You're going like,
this is the natural
Chicago
outcome
school.
of... Yeah, exactly. Neoliberal thought, right? Where the market is the moral arbiter. Let it do whatever it's going to do. And if that means that there's 5 companies that control an entire industry, that's perfectly acceptable. But back in the FDR period of time, it wasn't viewed that way. Monopolies were considered to be something that was detrimental to the health of our democracy. So that, again, like with all of these things, there's a component where public perspective has shifted on something, and it's usually driven by dark money coming in, funding media, funding this. Oh darn it! I knew spam
Is that
was
the
gonna happen.
Chicago school? You're not allowed. They're
Chicago-
revoking your credentials. You're not allowed.
Yeah, it's a good thing I'm not a fan of the Chicago school. Anyway, I digress, but this is, this is something we've seen in many different industries, not just the music industry. And I think, Americans are getting angry for all the right reasons right now. So it's good that they're taking TicketMaster to court. I think we should keep our eye on it, because the outcome here could maybe change other industries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing all these violations in it's not just like live shows, it's in media, it's in news and information. We're talking about bills that will make such a thing even worse. And of course, it's happening with food. It's happening right now with the Kroger-Albertsons merger, which we've been keeping an eye on this show. A lot of outlets don't talk about this stuff, by the way, folks. But this is stuff that will have
because they're part of monopolies. We've already had media consolidation, right? The monopolies in news media and media in general have already occurred, right?
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of independent outlets even that don't talk about this stuff. But yes, absolutely, the corporate outlets don't even touch this. And by the way, if you're wondering, before we get off the topic, if you're wondering what are some ways you can kind of do your best as a consumer, because we're talking about they are just so behemoth. Spotify is such a behemoth. Ticketmaster is such a behemoth. First of all, there are some acts out there that have planted their flag in the sand and said no Ticketmaster. Pearl Jam's one of them, actually.
Right on.
I'm not big on Pearl Jam's music.
Are they selling tickets directly from their website? How are they going about that?
I don't know if they do it total direct, or if they set up their own company, or if they use just an independent one. There's independent ticket companies out there. I use one, I just don't always get to control the ticketing, but someone like Pearl Jam, they're big enough. They can, make that kind of a demand.
Yeah, well, Prince too.
So
remember when he had the $25 tickets? Well, I believe he didn't use Ticketmaster. I'm not positive on that. Somebody might know, but don't you remember when he did, right before he passed away, he had that tour where he did $25 tickets for every show. You could go see him, sit front row. $25. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't remember that, but I love Prince.
Like
he was a good
He played
dude.
a whole month at the Forum here in LA. It was $25 a ticket every night, like no matter where you sat at the Forum. So, I think that was him pushing back on all of these outrageous ticket prices. And he's like, I want my fans to be able to afford to come see me. Let's do this. So
That's cool. I mean, so yeah, you can't push back. I mean, try to, when you see people doing their own ticketing, try to support such a thing.
Right.
And then the other thing is like, we're talking about Spotify, a really good, it's not necessarily an alternative to Spotify because it's a different thing. But if you kind of want to go out of your way to support artists better, best way to do that is Bandcamp. Artists put their music on Bandcamp. If you buy stuff on Bandcamp, it goes directly to the artist. The profit shares are very fair. Bandcamp is a much more artist-friendly site, whether it's music, comedy, whatever. So, just try to utilize sources like that the best you can. I'm not saying don't use Spotify at all. I mean, I know it's hard to avoid, but it's a way to fight back a little bit. So.
Indeed, it is. What else we got in the news today? Well, we have SCOTUS is back.
God, are they back? Oh my God. They are.
So I think we need to talk about that for a second here. So this morning, there was a case going before the Supreme Court. It's 303 Creative versus Alinas. This, folks will remember this is tied into LGBTQ rights. This has to do with whether a website designer is required to, do a design for a gay couple if they're religious and they don't want to do it, kind of a thing. So it's trying to bake in anti-discrimination language into like the First Amendment, in my opinion, if you want to boil it down to something. So we were paying attention, at least I was paying attention to this morning. I shouldn't say we. I want to bring up this great thread from one of the SCOTUS court watchers is Chris Geidner, if we can bring that up. All right, so arguments will soon begin in 303 Creative versus Alinas, a case that was manufactured to overturn Employment Division v. Smith, but SCOTUS didn't even grant cert on that question. So we get a First Amendment case, which is really seeking exemptions to non-discrimination laws. I think that's like a really good way to describe this. So Thomas asks about ripeness. Keegan, then Jackson, then Sotomayor are trying to get out the argument about creation versus content versus use. Wagner is mightily trying to fight back. Sotomayor wears the line. Wagner fell off the track, so Alito jumps in. So this guy's basically live tweeting, and you're wondering who's on second, who's on first. What's that baseball joke?
I was thinking you meant whose line is it anyway? What do you mean baseball joke?
Well, that could work. Isn't that a joke like who's on second?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, come on, man. You don't know that one?
I'm not a baseball guy.
All right.
It's not coming to me.
So I want to just show you some highlights, though, of some of the arguments that Samuel Alito made today, because he was in really atrocious form, let's be honest. The first one is Alito jokes with Justin Kagan about black children in Ku Klux Klan outfits. Let's play that clip, if we have that.
Justice Jackson's example of the Santa in the mall who doesn't want his picture taken with black children. So if there's a black Santa at the other end of the mall and he doesn't want to have his picture taken with a child who's dressed up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit, that black Santa has to do that?
No, because Ku Klux Klan outfits are not protected characteristics under public accommodation laws.
And presumably that would be the same Ku Klux Klan outfit, regardless whether the child was black or white or any other characteristic.
Yeah, you do see a lot of black children in Ku Klux Klan outfits, right? All the time. Suppose that
That's a conversation. I mean, people. Let's just take a step back. That's a conversation that happened in a court of law in 2022.
It happened in
the
our
United States. In our highest court
of law.
In our highest court. These are ridiculous points of association. I mean, first of all, it is offensive on so many levels that you're comparing a black child to a child wearing a Klan outfit. And making,
I mean, the idea that you would put on the same footing a black, right? So a black Santa is supposed to take a photo with a kid wearing a KKK outfit. I mean, to try to put these things on the same ground or the same even keel as as what we're saying here is anti-LGBTQ rights is fucking ridiculous. Pardon my French, but it is. You're basically saying that discriminatory speech, KKK outfits, right? Like we should force a black Santa to sit next to a KKK kid. That's hate speech. Sorry, are you serious?
Yeah.
If you can't see the difference between that and somebody that is a wedding photographer, somebody that does wedding design websites, that does, things, invitations, whatnot, basically saying, I'm not going to work for you or take your order because you're gay. Like, how is it that we are even having this conversation? Anybody that's having a good faith conversation about these things can recognize the difference.
It's a very gross, insensitive point of association that has no, I mean, there's just no, and again, I would be embarrassed if this happened at the racist uncle's Thanksgiving table. If this was the band of every, every racist uncle cliche, which, by the way, I don't know why we single out uncles for that cliche. As somebody who is sued to be an uncle myself, I don't know why uncles get sued. I don't know why. I mean, it's a cliche that exists, whatever, so people know when to use it. But anyway, that would be embarrassing enough that you're like, okay, so you don't see the difference. I mean, first of all, if a child is in a KKK costume, that's child abuse as far as I'm concerned. Like that's child abuse, imposing something like that on a child and indoctrinating a child with hate.
Which, let's be clear,
hate.
That has happened a lot in our past.
Of course
it still happens today.
Of course it does. I mean, the KKK is still in existence, and I'm sure members are breeding. So yeah, and it's very, very sad. But I mean, if you find out about any KKK porn, Tina, do not tell me about it. I don't want to know about it. You have to keep that to yourself. That's a callback to last week, by the way.
I was gonna say, hopefully people were tuned in last week.
Yeah, some people might be really confused right now. Like, what the hell is he talking about?
Bro, I'm just waiting for the Mussolini porn.
Yeah, that's a callback to something that happened last week on the show. That if you saw it, you might be laughing right now. If you didn't see it, you might be like, "What the
You're
fuck
like,
did
what?"
Just
yeah.
Go back and check out Thursday's show. But yeah, I mean, it's just so. I think, and by the way, I mean, I really feel this way. We need to abolish the Supreme Court and just replace it with something.
We need to do
something
something.
Different. There's it's so ridiculous that a handful of religious zealots, who, by the way, none of them, over half of the Supreme Court were appointed by presidents who didn't win the popular vote. So this is
Alito was appointed by Trump. So
the most powerful court in the world, or in the country at least, and I guess you could make.
At the very least, they should get rid of term limits. I mean, impose term limits. It's ridiculous that they're serving lifetime appointments.
Absolutely, that'd be a start, but the whole thing is freaking ridiculous. They're appointed by a president who may not even have won the popular vote, and in this case, it's more often than not that's the case. They're used as a political dogmatic football. They have nothing to do with law and order. Literally nothing. They are to the law what freaking like high
they are the law is the problem. I hear what you're saying, but
that's why they need to go. The whole thing shouldn't exist. It shouldn't exist. I mean, we should replace it with some type of federal court replacement, but it could be conducted in an entirely different way. There could be an elected board that appoints people. Judges could be appointed by just votes by the general public. I actually would rather have a board personally, but I mean, this is nuts what they're doing.
He thought it was funny. It was in bad taste, but yeah, wait till you hear about the J date and Ashley Madison one. Let's play the next clip because he wasn't done yet.
An unmarried Jewish person asks a Jewish photographer to take a photograph for his J-Date dating profile. It's a dating service, I gather, for Jewish people.
It is.
All right, maybe Justice Kagan will also be familiar with the next website I'm going to mention. So next, a Jewish person asks a Jewish photographer to take a photograph for his AshleyMadison.com dating profile. I'm not suggesting, I mean, she knows a lot of things. I'm not suggesting. Okay, does he have to do it?
Well, again, it would what Colorado it depends. What Colorado looks to is what services the photographer makes available to the public. And if the photographer makes that service available to others taking pictures, for use on websites, then probably yes. But it depends on.
So for people that don't know who AshleyMadison.com is, that's the site you go to if you want to cheat on your spouse. And there was a whole scandal that happened, a few years back with politicians being on there. But more importantly, the argument, that Eric Olson is making is if somebody has a business that's open to the public, right? So this is my business is open to the public. The way the laws are now is you can't discriminate over who you do business with, right? So, and, of course, Alito doesn't think that's the case by where he's going with this. Yeah. What do you think, Ron?
I just think they're making all of these just absurd, like they're bringing up all of these just ridiculous. It's all just a big slew of gotcha attempts. It's all just well, what about blah, 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 as a way to just justify, just blatant discrimination and to basically carve up these laws to allow theocratic rule. I mean, that's really what this is.
That is what it is. Let's be clear. That is what this is. That's what we're headed for. 100%. It's Christian fascism. There is another, Cullen, in Mark Joseph Stern's thread there. There's one further down that I want to play 1 second of his. It's Gorish presses Colorado Solicitor General Eric Olson to say that the Colorado forced Jack Phillips, the anti-gay baker and Masterpiece Cake Shop to undergo, wait for it, a re-education training program. This is really bad for civil rights, right? If your argument from a Supreme Court justice is that if you're just, not being discriminatory, that's, re-education training on employees, our employers, that's really bad news. Cullen, do you see that in there? Hopefully. I'd like to play this. There it is. Yep. Thank you.
Oh, we lost it.
Uh-oh.
We lost it. There
Mr.
it goes.
Phillips did go through a re-education training
Okay.
program pursuant to Colorado law, did he not, Mr. Olson?
He went through a process that ensured he was familiar with.
It was a re-education program, right?
It was not a re-education program.
What do you
Mr.
call
Gorsuch.
it?
It was a process to make sure he was familiar with Colorado law.
Someone might be excused for calling that a re-education
I strongly
program.
disagree, Justice Gorsuch.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Phillips did go through a re-education training program pursuant to Colorado law, did he not,
Let
Mr.
that
Olson?
sink in.
He went through.
So it was basically
let
he
that
went
sink
to
in
it.
for a second.
So
he went to learn what the laws are of the state that forbid you from being discriminatory in your job. And Gorish is basically saying that's re-education because these guys are so pro-discrimination, basically.
Right. Yeah.
To make it really plain.
I mean, they're just a bunch of
It's
dogmatic.
the framing that I'm finding really, really disturbing right now. But this is a SCOTUS judge, Ron. He is framing this as re-education. Is it re-education if somebody needs to be familiar with the state laws to to abide by them and not, be discriminatory in your business? Are you kidding me? That's where we're at? This is really disturbing.
That is where we're at. That's where we've been. I mean, our Supreme Court is a handful of dogmatic religious extremists that have a whole lot of power. And there is no redeeming this. There is no, term limits could be a small start, sure. But the whole thing needs to be scrapped. It's ridiculous. And even Democrats could expand it. Okay, that'd be cool for a little bit. But guess what? Republicans would expand it again. And then eventually you would just have a big...
Exactly.
It would just be a collection of 40 meatheads imposing their dogmatic theocratic fascism on the rest of us. And by the way, it's something most Americans don't want. You can look at case after case. They thumb their nose at the very idea of public opinion time and time again. And then they have these freaking conversations. Some of the analogies they were making in these clips we watched, it wouldn't even be fit for a Trump locker room. Yet they're doing this in the highest court in the freaking land. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, basically, it is. So basically, Gorish is, as far as I'm concerned, making the case that it's unconstitutional for the government to tell employers that they have to educate their employees to follow civil rights laws. That's basically it. I mean, if we want to be direct. So since that's the case, and you're right, they have thumbed their nose at what they think public opinion doesn't matter. But what they need to understand, what we all need to understand, in my opinion, is that the only way that our system functions, right, that SCOTUS and our legal system functions, is if there is buy-in from the public. Public trust is mandatory. We need to be able to trust our court system if we're going to see it as legitimate, right? So the minute that starts to disappear, which it is doing now, and these institutions become illegitimate in the eyes of the public, this is a complete degradation. I agree. It's going to lead to more civil unrest. It's going to who knows what else. But this is very dangerous territory that we're in, and I think this particular mix of SCOTUS judges we have now is just beyond the pale. Last term was egregious decision after egregious decision, and now we're bracing for more of the same thing, obviously, given what we saw this morning. They're going to go for gay marriage, I think. Well, I think they want to overturn that too. So I don't think it's just the gutting of Roe v. Wade, the gutting of civil rights. It's the Christian fascist agenda that you had referenced earlier. I think that is correct. A lot of these judges that have been appointed in the last under Trump for certain were connected to the CNP and the Federalist Society. These are definitely Christian fascist organizations. That's where the dark money is coming from. And speaking of dark money, I want to play one more video because I want folks to see who Alito is, because this veneer that's coming off now more so has always been there, or this his opinions like this have always been there. I say the veneer is coming off. So this is a clip that a throwback. So when people remember when Obama was president, he was given a State of the Union, and it was right after Citizens United decision, and of course SCOTUS attends the State of the Union. I want to play this clip because Alito defied Obama in his speech and said that's not true. So this is a flashback. Some will remember this. Maybe this will be new for some folks, but I do want to play that.
With all due deference to separation of powers, last week the Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit in our elections, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit in our elections, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit.
Alito, it is true because that's exactly what's happened. How can you say that's not true? That is exactly what Citizens United did.
Yeah, and you can always count on Obama to say some nice things and then do absolutely nothing about it. That was another classic Obama moment. Say the right thing, do absolutely frickin' nothing.
Okay, but there is nothing he can do about that. That would have to come. I mean, Congress would have to step in and do the 28th Amendment or something similar.
He could have fought
on this particular thing. We need to SCOTUS.
He could have fought for the pick that was rightfully his.
All right, I will give you that. I will give you that. I will definitely give you that.
This happened in 2015. He was out of office in 2016, so he could have gone to the mat for the pick that was rightfully his. So this was another virtue signaling moment from him.
Right, but that would not over.
No, I know that. No, I know. But if you're concerned about stuff the Supreme Court was doing, you think the very least you could do is go to the mat for a pick that was rightfully yours, and Obama didn't bother doing that.
I don't disagree with that. I 100% totally, because then they railroaded in the next guy.
Well, that's why. I mean, two of Trump's picks could have easily been avoided. Two of them could have easily been fought. If there was any fight from Democrats whatsoever, he would have only had one instead of three. And nobody mentions that,
which has been devastating.
It's been devastating. No one mentions it. But when Nancy Pelosi retired, no one mentioned it, or not retired, but stepped down from the speakership. No one mentioned that. I think we mentioned it on Status Coup. I think that was it. No one mentions, people just wag their finger at Jill Stein voters instead of being like, look, two of these picks could have been prevented. They could have used every tool in their arsenal to wait out the clock in 2020. And Obama could have gone for the mat to the mat for the pick that was rightfully his. He didn't do any of that. And Samuel Alito.
No, the Alito's a liar. He's a Bush appointee. My favorite guy, W. Yeah, it's bad.
I think your audio just went out. Can anyone hear Tina?
It's the same delay that had happened before.
Well, I can't hear anything.
It's what?
I didn't hear anything you just said. I don't know if your audio was out for everybody, but I lost like 90% of what you just said.
Are you talking to me, Ron? I hear you perfectly.
I'm talking to you. You are cutting in and out right now. Talk.
Really?
Please.
Hello.
No,
It's
all right,
StreamYard.
So you're out of sync. Yeah,
It's definitely
you're really
StreamYard.
out of sync. But for a while, your audio was just out completely. You started saying something, and I lost it entirely. And I said, "Hey, I can't hear anything," because I figured the audience couldn't either. Say something now.
I don't even know.
All right, so you're on a bad delay.
Yeah, again? I don't know why this is.
I don't know.
My apologies. It's StreamYard. This is not the first issue we've had with StreamYard.
We're like a bad overdub
sorry.
movie right now.
Really?
Yeah, like you're out of sync, and yeah, now you're back. You come in and out, but I lost you entirely there for a minute where I had no idea if you were talking. Like you were talking, but I couldn't hear anything. So anyway.
All right.
It's the Supreme Court.
Well, we're at the end here, thank goodness.
It's the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
they're
the Supreme Court. They're like
they're messing with us.
I don't know.
They're just like, don't tell our secrets. We have a plan. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I wanted to mention too, and then we'll get to the super chats and stuff and close out here. But like, you're talking about how they're going after gay marriage, which they are. They're also like, did you notice they're also doing a little pivot into interracial marriage too? Which that's not something that they did. They haven't done that before. I mean, this is freaking because they want to try to find a way to go after that too. And I'm not kidding. Like we're in a weird moment right now where there is a lot of like, people are able to put reasonable verbal diarrhea spins on straight up fascist ideas. And you're seeing it. That's why I will say this until I'm blue in the face. The most dangerous person in American politics right now is Ron DeSantis, because he is the best at doing that. He knows what he's doing better than anyone when it comes to that. The type of stuff. I mean, that guy, in his little anti-woke bill, he's basically trying to make it illegal to say there's anything wrong with the USA. It's freaking nuts.
Right.
And people are seeing this as reasonable. They see him as some kind of free speech guy. He's the opposite. He wants to make protesting illegal, for crying out loud. He has bills out there that are literally going to crack down on LGBTQ youth in a way that's going to make life even harder for them. And this guy, I mean, so we're in that wave. That's the wave we're living through right now. And they're going to, on top of that, they're going to put these little kind of side dog whistles like, well, interracial marriage. I mean, it might get really freaking bad. And every night before I go to bed, I sincerely hope that at least half of my predictions don't come true. I'm like, please don't let it even be half as bad as I think it's going to be. I sincerely hope I'm wrong on almost everything. Because if I'm not, holy shit.
I mean, we never thought we'd see Roe v. Wade overturned either. So I think it's all on the table right now. And unless we do something to clip back the Supreme Court, I don't see that train's left the station. It's bad.
Yeah,
Is this in sync again, by the way?
I think you're in sync right now.
Okay, StreamYard is just whack.
I think you're okay right now. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
I don't remember what I'd been saying earlier, but yeah, I pretty much concur with everything you just said. It's problematic.
Cool. Well, let's
super
let's kind of get to
chats?
let's get to the ends here. Tony DeMeo, what's up, buddy? Fantastic to see Tina and Ron. They are the queen of journalism and the master of guffaws. That's really nice of you to call Tina the master of guffaws. She appreciates it. The SCOTUS has too much. The SCOTUS has too much
really
power.
funny.
No kidding. No kidding. Double K, what's up?
That's so funny. Ron, you complete me. How do you do the heart?
You did it. Double K, what's up? You say Colin's headphones got a little bit of love. There we go. New year, new Colin. Colin's headphones getting a little bit of super chat love from Double K. Tony DeMeo, you're back. Why aren't more outlets talking about this bill? I'm assuming you probably meant JCPA. That's a fair question. I feel like it's a sort of, again, it's a bill they're trying to push under the radar. So it's a bill that a lot of people just aren't even aware of. I would like to think if everybody in indie media knew about this bill and knew what it really was, they'd all be screaming about it because it could really cripple our ability to exist. Like, seriously, if this bill goes through, the type of power it allows these big media conglomerates, they could pretty much rub us out of existence if they wanted to. So this bill is
I mean, they're doing a pretty good job of that now, really. I mean, look at the way YouTube handles its search functions now, you know? It suppresses independent channels and, like, pushes forward, you know, the main ones. It's very different from what it used to be 10 years ago, right?
That's very, very true. I mean, yeah, absolutely. They're already freaking doing this. And something like this is going to make it even easier for them. And so, so I'd like to think that if more people just knew about this, they'd be screaming about it. But again, I mean, this is just a congressional dirty trick. They're trying to push this through the NDAA. It's a total doublespeak on what they're calling the bill. It's about journalism preservation. Meanwhile, it kills journalism. So, Tony DeMeo, you also say 9 people shouldn't decide rights for all people. Yeah, no kidding. Especially when all people had no freaking say on these 9. Like, it's freaking nuts. And so thank you, Tony. Thank you, Double K. And folks, I'll mention my tour dates real quick before we get out of here.
Wait, Chris Garrett, hang on. Chris Garrett just dropped us 5. Thank you, Chris Garrett. We do. Thank you, Chris. This has been informative and entertaining. Thanks, Ron, and delayed Tina. I don't know what's so frustrating. I don't know. Why does it delay you instead of me?
I don't know. I mean, I do have, like, I have that theory that the internet starts at the ocean in California.
That's true.
Maybe there's something. It's a theory that I made up with no science behind it whatsoever. But maybe it's true. Who knows? Maybe the internet. There's a little seal that rides a bicycle, and that like, you know, gets the internet going in California, and it starts near me because I'm on the water. You're not, so it eventually gets to you. And but folks, this is why we need municipal broadband. The big cable companies, they make the seals pedal the bicycles. They don't pay them a living wage, and it's all to save money and price gouge. And municipal broadband, your city's in charge of the internet. It's a utility, and it's much better that way. You get better. Yeah, you get better internet at a better price.
We all need it to function now. We should definitely.
That's gonna be my next thing. Municipal broadband, save the seals, and anyone who hasn't seen this episode is gonna be like, "What does that? How are those two things connected?" You just
save
wait.
The seals.
You'll find out. You'll find out.
It's with the KKK porn.
Yes, yeah. Which, by the way, if you had no idea what that reference, check out Thursday's episode. It breaks it towards the end of Thursday's episode. It's a sneak peek on a piece that Tina is writing. Yeah,
pretty much.
And folks, I'll mention my tour dates here before we get out of here. I will be in Tucson, Arizona, January 28th. And you can use the promo code Lucy for a discount on tickets for that show. And that's not just a stand-up show. It's a stand-up show and the debut screening of my short film Loner. So I'm real excited for people to see that film. I'm real excited to release it to the world. And it all starts in Tucson on January 28th. Use the promo code Lucy for a holiday discount for a limited time only. Grab them. February 10th, I'll be in Los Angeles. April 14th, May 12th, the second and third show of my 3-show installment in Los Angeles. February 18th, I'll be in San Diego. All tickets and details can be found at romplacone.com. And I think we got
Alrighty
it. Do
then.
we have anyone else?
We got it. Yeah. No, I think we're wrapping this one up. Thanks for joining us today. So I think tomorrow, Ron, you're doing the stream tomorrow. Wednesday,
I'll be here tomorrow.
We have Kim Brown. Okay.
Yes.
Wednesday we have Kim Brown. I have
there's a new show.
Guest on Right Wing and on Thursday. Yeah. So on Wednesday night, I was gonna say it was Thursday night. You're right. So Ty is back, everybody. Ty is back. He's doing a new show. It's going to be on Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. So you're going to want to tune into that. I'm happy to see Ty's back with us doing some live streaming. This is awesome. And then Thursday we have Ron and I will do the first hour. The second hour, I have a guest joining me to talk about disinformation campaigns in right-wing extremist world. Interesting stuff. And then Friday, who's on Friday? I actually don't know this week.
It's usually
Colin?
Steve,
Anyone?
right? Isn't it Steve?
Is it Steve?
Colin,
I
get
thought
in
it was
here with your
Sunday or
headphones.
Saturday?
Yes.
Colin, get in here. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Colin, are
Okay,
you
so Steve's
always
Friday now. Okay.
you always have to wear a hoodie that matches your headphones from now on?
I know.
You can't. You have to make sure
Only
that
a hoodie. That's I've
He
never
looks
been
like
able
he's
to
a
do.
DJ at a rave.
any shirt of your
You look
choice.
like
You
you're
do
a
look
DJ at a
like
rave.
yeah,
It's really funny.
yeah.
I
You do
have
look-
a couple pink not sweaters.
You do look like you have the best deal on Molly while EDM plays and people are dancing. You do look like a DJ at a rave right now. Good for you.
That would have been the life.
That's so funny. So funny. All right. So everybody,
Thank you
that's our
all.
programming for the week. Thanks for joining us today. And then tune in tomorrow to see Ron.